This is over the Whiskey Rebellion, which was the first big crisis that George Washington had to deal with. So I'm going to give you some background information here. What was the problem? The initial problem is this. The Revolutionary War had left the United States in debt, $52 million. And that's back then money. So that's hundreds of millions of dollars today. Anytime a country goes to war, wars are expensive. You have to pay the soldiers, uniforms, food, the guns, the ammo, all of that stuff. So the United States, even though this war ended 5, 6, 7 years prior, the United States is pretty in debt. And we owed money. So during the war, the United States borrowed money from citizens in the form of bonds, and they also borrowed money from foreign nations. So the U.S. has IOUs for $52 million. So Washington goes to Alexander Hamilton to solve this problem. And the reason he went to Alexander Hamilton, because Alexander Hamilton was the Secretary of the Treasury. And Secretary of Treasury, as we spoke about, is in charge of economic issues, money supply, currency, stuff like that. So Hamilton's solution to this problem, not surprisingly, was to raise taxes. And this is often done. Country needs more money, you raise taxes so more money comes in. So he raised taxes on a bunch of different items, but one of those in particular was whiskey. And this is known as an excise tax. An excise tax is a tax on the production or sale of a specific product. In this case, he was taxing whiskey. He taxed other items other than whiskey, but this is the one that's going to cause some issues. So this is going to lead to a rebellion, which I'm going to show you a series of paintings, and maybe you can figure out which direction we're heading with this. Okay, so now the second part of the story. I'll read through this. It reads, nearly 20 years after the Revolutionary War began, the U.S. government faced a small-scale revolution by some of its own citizens. As in previous wars, taxes were the central issue. Alexander Hamilton and George Washington understood that putting down or stopping the rebellion was critical or important to the life of the nation. In order to create an effective government, Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton knew he needed to find a steady source of revenue or money for the government. Hamilton proposed a tax on whiskey produced in the United States, and Congress passed the tax in 1791. In general, the citizens of that time felt negatively towards the idea of taxation. The farmers of western Pennsylvania, many of whom made whiskey for extra money and profited from it, were very, very hostile to this idea. In July 1794, 500 farmers who had been making whiskey attacked and burnt down the home of a tax collector. Prior to the burning, farmers had whipped tax collectors, tarred and feathered them, and stolen their taxes they had collected. They then began marching towards Pittsburgh. The rebellion grew larger and threatened to spread to other states. In addition, many farmers began talking about declaring their independence from the United States and joining either Spain or Britain. They even designed their own flag. Hamilton knew that this rebellion could turn from bad to worse. If the government were to survive, it would have to show itself capable of keeping control. Hamilton wanted the military to be sent in to put down the protesters. George Washington instead sent in representatives to negotiate peacefully. When peace talks broke down between the rebelling farmers and government officials, Washington sent in 13,000 soldiers led by Washington himself and the governor of Virginia. These were some of the flags, the rebellion flags, from the farmers who were discussing separating from the United States. By the time the army got there, most of the rebels had run away. 2 men were convicted of treason and were later pardoned by Washington. Pardon means forgiven. Hamilton was very happy by all of this. The government had shown it was capable of keeping order. However, not all were happy. Thomas Jefferson thought that sending in the army was a mistake.